And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Quivz here, Quivz does stuff. Recently I learned how to draw chibi characters in anime. My style isn't fully anime, but I still use kind of anime eyes. And yeah, so I looked up some tutorials. I've never been able to do it properly. But yeah, so we're going to have some more practice at drawing at the moment. I have added one chibi character to my intro screen, which you might have seen momentarily before. And yeah, we're just going to keep working on the goblins. There are 3 goblins that I draw all the time, and we're just going to keep working on them in a sort of chibi way. So yeah, so this is Krita, I believe it's pronounced Krita. It is the drawing program that I use. It is free. It costs nothing, which is the best thing about it. It's got most of the functionality that I used out of Photoshop without having to pay for Photoshop. So no cam capture while I'm drawing because, well, it's kind of pointless. I tend to hunch over my graphics tablet, so there's no real point because all you'd really see for the most of the time would be the top of my head, so why bother? Right, let's make sure we're kind of set up, and then zoom in just a little bit. I'm still a bit squished here. I haven't got my keyboard in the best of spots for this. I haven't set up my desk very well for this at all. Alright, so chibis. Big round head. Now, I will let's show some comparisons. So normally when I draw an anime character, it starts with a circle, and then you draw the center line of the face, and then a chin that sort of is somewhere below the face, and the cheek comes off the edge of the sphere like a tangent, and then you divide the sphere into 3 pieces. But for chibis, you don't do that. There is no chin line. There is literally just that. I sort of use this kind of bottom quarter line as a guide to where the eyes should kind of stop. And then the rest of it I have been doing basically on instinct. Whereabouts should they be? And that's about right. So this is sort of where the top of the eye should be. Right, so let's start with, we'll just draw basic Skrank, who is the primary goblin. Now, chibis normally have more cutesy eyes as well. Okay, so now we've definitely got to move the middle line of the face because I've pulled that eyebrow across, but that's all right. The eyelash, actually, that is what these lines are representing. But yeah, so one of the things about chibis is that you're trying to represent all the important parts, and one of the important parts of this particular goblin is she's stern and taciturn, so she doesn't actually have cutesy eyes because it doesn't suit her character in any way, shape or form. I'm going to put that extra eye glints in as well. Oh man, I wish they weren't doing so much work next door. Another thing in chibis is you don't normally draw the nose, but once again they're goblins and they've got these big sharp noses, or at least I imagine them as having these big sharp noses, so I keep the nose. And big smiles, grinning faces, pretty normal for chibis as well. Once again, really not in the character, and as a result ends up not being in there because it just doesn't suit. I get some eyelashes in. This is not really a tutorial. You could use some of what I'm going to show you to maybe assist if you've never drawn chibis before yourself, but yeah, because I'm learning, I'm kind of working things out. Now, another one is the ears are normally quite small in comparison to the head and the eyes, but these are goblins and they've got big ears. So there's 2 ways to go about it, and one of the ways is you accentuate any sort of defining features. So I could have gone with really big ears, and I kept trying that at first, but it looked silly. It never seemed to work out. So the ears are smaller than they would be on a normal goblin. If this was a normal goblin, by comparison to the rest of the size of the head, the ears would be about that big, which is pretty big. Like, they are you know, a bigger percentage than they are here. Here they are the same size as they are on this larger head. So they're bigger, but they're not much bigger, and they actually look smaller in proportion. They are shorter, they are more shrunk inwards on the horizontal plane. Right. Now again, defining features, so these are normally that big. But again, because it's a chibi and you're supposed to accentuate certain things, so I normally make them bigger, and that wasn't big enough. In fact, I want them kind of, always changes opacity whenever you do that. I want them bigger than that, so. And then 2 studs of shrinking sizes. Right, eyebrows. Eyebrows are higher than you think they'd be, so that characters actually have quite a fair bit of forehead. And then the hair starts way up on the head, which is also like not normal. So let's see, Skranks. Let's just do a comparison on this side so you can see what she'd normally look like. Okay, that's a weird ass eye. Those aren't great eyelashes, but you know, they're there to give the idea rather than being perfect. So that would be fairly typical for where we're up to now. Eyebrows. And the hair. Now the hair, I've been working on this for ages and it still doesn't look right, but it sort of does this, and then over again, and then over again, and then you have the flip up part, flip over part, and then that comes down from there, and then you have to put some hair lines in to let people know which direction the hair is flowing. And then on this side it is just a bunch of little pieces because she's got an asymmetrical haircut. And that is what she would normally look like. So in Chibi, once again, some things you want to accentuate. So I want to actually make the hair bigger than it would otherwise be. Something like that. It's not perfect, and once again I need to work on this hairdo a bit. It's not right yet. It's getting closer to where I want it to be, but it's not right yet. Yeah, you want to make the hair bigger as well, bigger than it would be. Same as with most of the other features, you want to actually make it larger than it would be in a regular size drawing. Now, Chibi sizes. There is, the main ones are 2 head, which means that the entire body would fit into this space here. Or there's 3 head, which means the entire body fits into this space here. So we're going to go with 3 head because that's the one that I'm sort of better at, because it gives you a little bit of space for definition. Now, when you do 3 head, this line here, that is the bottom of the torso. Now the shoulders are quite narrow, the waist is extremely small and narrow, and then the vast majority of the actual character is taken up in the hip area and is extremely wide. Much wider than the shoulders. 2 to 3 times is about right. And then the legs have almost no definition. In fact, no definition is fine. A lot of people would just do that. But I give it a... Oh, damn you. I give it a little bit of definition by sort of giving you some indication of where the calf is, thusly. But other than that, no feet, no definition on the feet whatsoever, just lumps. Right. You want everything to be rounded, so no sharp edges. I normally draw the shoulders quite sharp, but instead of doing that, I sort of want them to be like this. And again, people's hands basically around sort of the bottom of their hips, the bottom of their torso, that's where your hands actually are. The hands should be a little bit bigger than they should otherwise be in scale with the rest of the... Okay, that arm is definitely too small. In scale with the rest of the body. And yeah, like you can draw feet, but I haven't been able to draw feet that actually look any good, so I've just been going for this. It essentially looks like a pair of fingers that stick off the bottom of the torso. Right. So defining features of the goblins is mostly their clothes, which is why no need to draw those on now that we have the basic body. Boo. And a fingerless gloves. Right, and that is a basic chibi. Not great, not my best work, but very quick. So let's say we wanted to actually work on this. Let's go up, change the size of the pencil a little bit, go to tool options, add some weighted to help me draw straight, since I'm a sketcher and not a drawer. To go like that, I can have those bits there. Let's just quickly knock up a line art. So you can see more of the definition of the actual character. Which bits I want to keep and which bits were just sketches and guidelines. Yeah, what next? Let's do this part here. Right, let's do the eyes, because they matter. So really the biggest thing about it is that the eyes are massive in comparison to the rest of the body, and as a result the head has to be pretty big to accommodate such large eyes. If you follow those sorts of rules, you'll actually draw pretty good chibis pretty much straight away, and then the rest of it is knowing about the proportions in relation to each other. So like I said, you know, the hands are a certain size, and the legs, the hips in comparison to the upper torso yeah, okay, I'm still happy with that. The flat line is not normal, but I'm going to go with it because it's okay. There is the side of the face here. Now everything's rounded. You're not supposed to use... Oh, I've got that line wrong. Let's try that again. You're not really supposed to use... I struggle with this bit. Any sharp corners. So try to keep everything as round as possible. So even when I do the chin, like there's barely any distinction there. I do make exceptions for the ears because, well, they're supposed to be these goblin ears and they're kind of sharp. Like that's kind of, once again, it's more part of the actual character, and henceforth if I changed it to suit the chibi style, I'd actually lose some of who the character is. Same with the arms. Like you don't do regular elbows, you just do curves. You don't bother to actually put an elbow in, you just curve the arm where it needs to be so that it gets to where it needs to go without actually spending any time trying to draw the joints. It's as if they don't have bones. You sort of treat them as if they don't have bones. They have a skeletal structure because otherwise they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't look humanoid at all. But when you do any sort of motion or action, you pretend they don't have bones and just get them into the position they need to be in. Without worrying too much about how they got there and what, you know, bones would have passed through other bones or broken or dislocated during the course of whatever movements they would have had to make to get there. What haven't we done? We haven't done this. Haven't done the eye folds, the eyebrows. And that's it. Not great, like I said, you know, it's not my best work, but I'm still learning this style. That's not how I would normally do line work either. I don't normally do it like this. I don't normally use this brush, but as an example, it's very quick and easy, so we can do that. And then if I wanted to, and I'm not going to do it now, but I could go in and start, you know, let's start messing about with colors, you know, and so on and so forth. Just because, yeah, it's a thing you can do. So that's it, and I am literally just gonna keep messing about, making new layers and drawing. So let's try again, shall we? Should also actually have things up so I can see. It's better. All right, now zoom out again just a little bit. Start a new one. Right, let's start. So, the streaming intro. The idea was to have essentially, okay, that's already wrong because that's not chibi, but one goblin, cup of drink, Sitting cross-legged. Well, not cross-legged, but sitting there, looking this way. Another goblin, let's say I moved over a little bit because I need to get the space right. This way with box of popcorn. Giant box of popcorn as well. And trying to keep this goblin, middle goblin, from getting box of popcorn, also sitting on the ground thusly. This goblin is face planted into this goblin's hand. And is scrabbling for popcorn and getting nothing but this other goblin's face, apparently. Wasn't expecting that to work out that way. We might have to worry about the things of that later. And is on their knees doing that. So that's the concept. Well, that will be the concept. Now I need to learn to draw those 3 different poses. So I think this one is going to be the easiest one. That's a different goblin as well, because this will be Skrank, and that'll be Crinkle, and that'll be Schleich. That'll make more sense if you knew my goblin mascots. You'll also know that Schleich recently changed names. It wasn't always called Schleich. The side bits here are kind of flat now because we're front on. And the head is sort of basically just that shape. There's a nose here, but they're goblins, so I need to do something to differentiate where the nose is. And Schleich does have the cutesy eyes because that is part of her character. She is not stern or taciturn, so she should have big old anime eyes. Take up a massive amount of the head. Definitely drawn that center line, not in the center. And she also needs to be looking to her right, left of screen. I was wondering why this was so hard. I've still got a weighted brush on. Let's turn that off again. That's better. Some sort of admission that there is a nose here. There's going to be a straw coming out of a mouth, so we'll do that. Goblin ears. Hers are just 3 studs. Okay, so if we're still going to go 3 tall, the thing is now I want to go 3 tall, but the legs won't really fit into a full third. So if I go like that, the torso has to fit in there, but the legs only have to fit in a smaller space because she's sitting down. So essentially she's got a little tiny neck there, she's got tiny little shoulders like that. I need to draw the rest of this drink cup. it's a prop, so it should be enormous, so you probably won't see much of this goblin. Maybe not that big, because if it's that big, it's bigger than the rest of her torso, and that's all you'd actually see of her, which is... Actually, that's not a bad idea. We could try and roll with that. So, another little chibi thing is you don't need much definition for the hands. They literally can just be like, I show where the thumb is. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to. You could literally just make them circles. But I like to show where the thumb is so that the fingers can have some kind of emotion. They can convey movement and action. Yeah, we'll come back to the hairdo. So if our torso was there, that means the bottom of the torso ends there, which means the legs come out here. Once again, they're basically like big fingers, so it's too sharp. It's got to be more round. Yeah, I mean, that kind of works. Does mean she's going to kind of look naked, but yeah, consider what we're going to do about that in the future. Right, so the front of her hair, quite large. Possible, so I can see where it's supposed to be. This should actually be like that. Oh Jesus, yeah, I don't know what sort of construction work they're doing, but they're doing it next door and it's ruining my streaming. Oh well. This particular goblin has a big ponytail, and because this is chibi, it's got to be an enormous ponytail. Put an extra little bit in there so that it's got more volume. So something like that. Let's do the quick basic line brush. Let's go with this. The problem with this is that it starts and stops the line for you, which is can have problems. That is so thin. Why is that thin? That's not what I thought it was going to look like at all. Let's go a bit thicker than that. Oh, that's because I'm still zoomed out. This is a really big drawing, actually. It's not even 100% yet. That's also wrong, because this starts out here. Yes, that's about right. Sort of. should be sharp because it's a goblin nose and they're sharp. Eyes are enormous. Big shiny glints in them. Big old pupils. Ooh, I forgot to do this on a separate layer. Oh well, that's going to mean a lot of time with an eraser to fix it if I was going to keep this one, but I'm not going to keep this one, like I said. We are just practicing today. We are trying to work out how I'm going to do a lot of this stuff, because a lot of it is going to actually require me to develop entirely new skills. And I've only recently learned even the most basic parts of how to draw chibi, so I'm a long way from really using it. Although that being said, I've already sort of got one on the channel now, which is, you know, wasn't expected, but I sort of drew it and was like, you know what, that looks good enough to at least have as a preliminary thing. Jesus. This looked quite bad in there. Boom. Yada yada yada, that should be there maybe. I don't know whether you'd see it, but it's about there, so we'll put it there. Don't really see those because they're entirely hidden by the cup, but that will sort of work. Yeah, so not ideal, but it's there. Let's do some more definition on the eyes because that will make it look like a better character. Alright, well I can't do that with this one, so it gets thicker at the top. Give it a bit of extra. Those big lashes. And eyebrows all the way up here in the hair. Could decide whether to actually keep those or make them entirely invisible later. I weren't even when I did them, but oh well. Alright, let's go to this. Shrink the size down a little bit. Add a bit of extra extra fill where needed. Possibly like that, maybe a bit too big. And this one does not go as high up as that, so in fact, let's go in here and correct that. Supposed to look like. Yeah, so not great, but conceptually it still kind of works because it achieves the concept that I'm going for. Alright, not bad. Let's try something else. Let's try the one on the end. So the one on the end, on the other end, that'll be Skrank again. Oops, wrong tool. Let's get back to a sketchy brush. So, a circle. She is looking that way. The head is tilted up a little bit, not too much. I think I've overdone the up tilt there. I want it to be sort of there. Means that the eye socket is now moved this way. She should in fact be a little bit angry, which changes the eye considerably. This is there, not there. See things. I've still got the damn weighted brush on. I always do that. And I wonder why like my drawing isn't working out the way I want it to work out. Or why for some reason sometimes it doesn't switch to the eraser when I flip the pen over. Krita is not without its foibles. I don't know whether it's a Krita thing or a pen thing. This is a Wacom. Damn, I can't remember what version this is. It's a couple of years old now. There's definitely a new version out already. A couple of years. And I should go this way this time. See it. Shoulders are going to be tiny. Just like I said, they don't follow proper rules. They don't bother with joints and bones, they just sort of end up in the appropriate places. Really crazy wide hips. She was sitting this way. That's the way she should come down. razor. Work better would be if she was like that. Inside so you can see it, so it should be thumb hand. Thumb will be on the outside, so hand. Probably hiding the face. Bigger than that, really. Get it this way. Spilling popcorn. She's angry that eye folds are much closer. Eyebrows are still all the way up here. They are also angled. Now the hairdo, I've never drawn the hairdo from this angle. So this is going to be different. So we know that this bit does this. So it should look like that from this angle. But this bit, holy hell, this is going to be awkward. Let's think about what it does. It comes down, it goes up, flops back on itself, and then flops back on itself again. Definitely going to have to work out how to do that. I might even need to resort to 3D modeling software to work that one out. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm drawing there, but because I don't need that much, too much detail. Something like that. least I can get close. Much smaller than that because it's just Chibi. You would have to work on it in concept, but I think the idea is there. Definitely takes some time to really get it right, but we've sort of got something that could kind of work. Let's sake of argument. There it is. Yeah, you get the idea. So it's the three of them getting ready to watch the stream that I'm about to do, because this will be the streaming soon sort of mascots. One's got a drink, one has popcorn, one has nothing in one's popcorn. So, the other concepts that I was going to do is pretty simple. I'll have to work on it a little bit to make it look good. So the be back soon. One of them missing. One of them banging on the side of the door. And one of them hopping from foot to foot holding it in. So basically the toilet break, because that's what I mostly use the Be Back Soon for, that and making coffee. I did consider putting them at the concession stand again, but then I would have to invent someone to stand at the concession stand too. So I thought toilet break. One of them's just missing inside what looks like an outhouse. One of them is angrily banging on the side of the outhouse, and one of them is hopping from side to side because they need to pee, and they're third in line. And then for the final, there won't be any goblins at all. It'll literally just be the empty drink cup and the empty popcorn container with spilled popcorn around the place and some stuff dribbling out of the drink cup, I guess, or condensation and stuff all dribbling off the floor. And yeah, I thought those would be 3 decent mascot pictures to use. Right, so that was a bit of experimentation on actually what to do in total. Let's just mess about now a little bit more. So let's see, what else is there? Let's draw. Once again, you need this little bottom piece. Chin a bit better. That should be, so the eyes are right here, so don't have any waiting at the moment, do I know? The space between them, between the eyes, is normally supposed to be larger as well, but I get that wrong a lot. I'm trying not to, but I do get it wrong a lot. Trying to get better at that. do her clothing in this style. I might have to consider how that's going to work out. Make it like that. Like that. Put it there. Yeah, chibis. You can do lots of stuff with them. They are quicker to draw because you are literally minimizing a lot of the details on purpose. Those eyes are too small. They needed to be much bigger than that, but oh well. Curved, no hard bits. Be pretty uncomfortable now that I look at it. I might have to consider how better to do her clothes, because that would not be something that you would want to wear all day, every day. Yeah. So, goblins. I've got them, I draw them, and I've learned to draw them chibi. So yeah, so the big things to take away if you are trying to learn to draw chibi: accentuate the eyes; they have to be enormous. Noses are not necessary. Mouths are tiny. But primary features that create the character of the character you are trying to draw, those should still be present because otherwise they won't look like it. Take your normal hair and enlarge it slightly. It should be even though the chibi head is already big, the hair should actually be even bigger than that on the character. The upper torso is about a third the width of the head. The lower torso is about 2/3. The distance between the upper torso and the lower torso is about the same as the sphere of the skull. The distance between the tops of the legs and the bottom of the legs is again about that. Now, there is one other way to do this, and that is a 2-head chibi. So let's crank in a 2-head chibi. So same head shape, very simple, almost no definition to it at all. Just a slight indent where the eyes are, and otherwise it's practically a perfect sphere. Massive eyes. Take up most of the head. Again, the nose, because the goblins have big noses. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother. Scrank never smiles, so don't put a smile on her. Otherwise, on a chibi, big smiles, normally. Very much overdone emotions on the faces as well. You can even use the kind of emotions that you see on emojis. It actually works on them. I'll give you just a quick example. Let's say this was just a generic. So yeah, normally the ears are like this big on a chibi. Oh wait, I was about to do an emoji. So let's just say can totally get away with emojis. A hairstyle. It's a horrible looking hairstyle. But you get the concept. You can get away with emoji stuff because they are so overdone. That yeah, it still works. Anyway, we were doing 2-head style, so it's called 2-head style because the entire body is 2 heads tall, including the head, which is very short. But yeah, it's a different sort of chibi look, and it still works. It's very strange, but I've done some experimentation. Oh, that's a bit small. Got to accentuate the hair. It's got to be big. It's got to be bold. It has to almost cover the eyebrows because of where I started. Definitely need to work on this hairstyle. I don't think it's physically possible, which is one of the problems. Which is why I said I might have to spend some time in a 3D program to actually have a look at it and go, hey, that's not even doable. Let's do something else because that's not even physically possible. Alright, so the head doesn't change. Proportions are the same, etc., etc. But now, so now I know the hair is bigger, but you actually want to size everything by the sphere of the skull. Now to fit the same body, into this section, that whole section. So halfway. Now, in this case, I will not draw any gender-defining features whatsoever because there's no point. I do not have the space for it. What I will do is I will just make a sort of triangle and then attach some legs to the triangle. Oops, that's not bloody right at all. Probably not even wide enough. It needs to be wider than that. Let's do the arm on this side first. So there's an arm. The arm will be about that big. Looks like they've got a big belly, but that's because that's what this looks like. And in this one, I definitely don't have space to add any definition to anything. But yeah, very, very weird looking, but also perfectly doable. Still defining characteristics in this case are the clothes, so we put those on where they should go regardless of what they look like. Probably could have drawn it bigger to begin with so that you could actually see more, but... And that would be a 2-head chibi. So, I'm not a fan of those. It's harder. You have less space to put any sort of defining characteristics in anywhere except the head. The goblins are a little bit dependent on their clothing and body shapes to define parts of their character, to define them as one different to the other. You will find that a lot with chibis. So characters with similar hairstyles will look almost identical and you will have to find a different way to define them, and generally you will do that via clothing or accessories. There's other things to know, like for example, if this one was, let's say it's not a, let's say she was a give her a shirt. Be about there. About there, something like that. And let's say she was wearing some sort of skirt dress with a ribbon on the back. So let's say there was a bow ribbon, right? And that would be the appropriate size normally. But now it's chibi, so you want to overdo anything that moves around or flows. So that what would have been a little ribbon before is now freaking massive and super obvious. Its presence is overdone. The same goes for things with hair. If normally you would maybe do something like that, that now should become instead something like that. So yeah, little bits and pieces, over accentuate certain things. Anything that can move or swing or sway, good idea to make them really big so that when you do try to do an action scene, like your character actually moving, maybe they're running, maybe they're walking, jumping, doing a kung fu kick, whatever, that piece will sway. And when it does sway, it's really big, so it's really obvious, so it gives the chibi, which otherwise looks like a very static lump essentially, it gives it a lot of movement and momentum. So over accentuate the accessories, anything that's going to move or sway. So in the case of the goblins, like most of what they wear doesn't move or sway. It's just supposed to be animal skins and some brass or copper or whatever metals they happen to beat into an appropriate shape, because they're quite primitive. Not because they have to be, they're extremely smart and they could actually probably develop decent technologies, but because they don't need to. They're just they're simple hunter-gatherers. They're extremely good at foraging and extremely good at trapping and hunting. And they are extremely hardy, so they don't need to, and they don't bother to because it feels wasteful. They're pretty extreme hippies, to be honest. They don't bother with technology because they don't need to, because they know they can live really, really well without having to go that level. They don't do farming much. They have a principle. So if all three of them eat an apple, all three of them will throw the apple cores in the same direction, and if all three of them the next day eat a bunch of peaches, they'll throw the peach pips in a different direction, so when the trees grow up, they'll know apples will be over this way and peaches will be over that way, if they ever come back this way. But they're also nomadic, so they might never be back. But yeah, they don't farm as such, but they do sort of have some principles in what how they spread seeds and things like that in regards to vegetables. But yeah, that is probably going to do it for now, guys. Maybe I won't bother drawing. I might have a title card that isn't a streaming soon title card, but just a title card. And I might draw it. Because actually, this one, that Schleich, that one actually turned out really good. That would actually be almost worth spending the time doing a proper line art and colouring, because she looks rather adorable there. But we'll see. Anyway, guys, so thank you very much for watching. I will jump back over into position if I can. Oh dear, what have I done? Here we are. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I don't do drawing stuff live very often. I've been drawing less and less often for some time, and now that I've sort of, I was like, well, how am I going to reinvigorate myself? Well, the problem is everything takes too long. How can I make things go quicker? And the answer came to me, and I'm like, chibis are real quick. Every time I ever see anyone actually draw a chibi live, it takes them minutes. Maybe I should learn how to do chibis. I've always wanted to, and I always used to try, but I never actually bothered to look up any of the rules that govern how to do it. So it doesn't look right unless you know the rules. So if you just tried, like all I was doing was trying to draw tiny little bodies on big-headed people, and it looked wrong because they looked more like Easter Island heads. And that's because I didn't know the rules, and now I do. So for example, curves. There aren't sharp edges on a chibi unless it's required by their personality. So for example, like I said, Scrank got the sharper eyes and the goblins have sharp noses, and maybe your character is wearing armor or they've got a big sword or something. Oh, definitely oversize other accessories like swords, weapons. Way too big. They've got to be so big. Yeah, so I hadn't been drawing a lot because I'd been a bit sort of like, I'll never get anywhere, I never finish anything, I never can be bothered colouring anything because there's so much detail and the line art takes so long and this, that and the other. And I'm like, what can I do to sort of reinvigorate my imagination? And I tried to, think of new things to draw, something that I was excited about. I tried to do my D&D character, and I've got an idea of him in my head, but I've never been able to really get onto paper what I'd like him to look like. I actually did a reasonable chibi of him the other day. I won't draw it now. Maybe another time I'll show you Chibi Korth Debenathi. But yeah, so I did spend a lot of time, and just the sheer amount of time without actually getting anywhere was frustrating. So I stopped drawing for a very, very long time. And then it wasn't that long ago I sort of conceptualized, I'm like, all right, well, what would make it easier? How could I speed up my workflow and therefore get closer to a finished product quicker, which might make me feel more accomplished, and then if I feel more accomplished, it might allow me to actually have the impetus to do a standard size drawing and spend more time on it, or for example do 5 stages and then put it away and then just draw up some chibis that'll make me reinvigorate me, and then I can go back to that drawing again at a later date. Because a lot of the time what would happen is I would draw something, do 3 or 4 steps, like maybe get the line art ready and then get the base colors down, and then be like, it's been 3 hours. I don't want to do any more work on this right now. I don't want to go in and do shadows and highlights and line colors. Because one of the things you can actually do is change the colors of the line art as well. It doesn't have to be just black. If they've got red hair, use like a really dark rust red, almost brown color, and do the line art for the hair in that color. It'll look really good. And then you can go in later, and on the shiny side of the hair, you could do something really light, like a pink or a, what would be the appropriate shade to actually go to? Again, probably a light brown or maybe even an orange. But yeah, and you can change the colors of the lines and use different colors of the shadow side of the lines to the highlight side of the line. There's all sorts of tricks and stuff you can do in anime and other sorts of cartooning and drawing. But yeah, those are things that I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And I do my picture and I do everything correct. And the line art, each individual piece of the character. So the eyes are on one, just the eyelashes are on one layer. The eye folds are on another layer. The eyebrows are on another layer. The nose is on another layer. The lips, the face shape, each individual chunk of hair is on a different layer to each other. And I've got this massive drawing that's now like, hundreds of megabytes large, closing on a terabyte. And I've got, the basic color on it and stuff. And you do all that so that you can go back in and change things later. So maybe I want to change the color of something. I don't want to have to mess with any other colors that I've already changed in the thing. I can just go in, hide all the other layers, use a filter and start playing around and going, all right, let's just adjust the red, green, blue balance. And that'll let me actually change the colors and get a look of what this is going to look like in different colors without going in and actually repainting the color. And then especially if I've already highlighted and shaded it, I can use those filters to change the colors without having to go in and redo each section. So I wouldn't have to, like, if I change something from green to blue, I just take all the yellow out and it'll be blue. And the shading will be blue and the highlights will be the right blue. I won't have to go in and redo, I won't have to go in and take all the, paint the whole area blue and then go in and re-highlight it and reshade it and redo the line art. I can just go in and change those pieces because they're all separated on the separate layers. So you end up with these massive, massive drawings, and I only ever get like a few steps deep, and then I get bored of doing the picture, and then I never get any further. So the chibis was sort of a way to, hey, look, you could scribble these up in minutes. You could spend less time, because they are so unrefined, you don't have to spend as long actually working on the line art. You can do the line art just as one layer, and you could do the skin as one layer, and then the eyes as one layer, and then the clothes as one layer. And you could do the highlights on that layer if you really wanted to. You could still separate, have the clothes base color, the clothes highlight on one layer, and the clothes shade on another layer. And then you can go to the umpteenths, the extremes that you would go to on a more detailed drawing, but you don't have to. You can just simplify things because they are chibi. They are quite simple. One layer of highlight and a base color looks great on them. One layer of highlight and a shade looks amazing on them. And then if you go even further, they look extra, extra special. But they already look really good because they are so simplified, and that's part of the charm of the kind of drawing. So yeah, so hopefully this might reinvigorate my, might get me drawing more, which is the idea, because I do want more of that on the channel. Now, the other thing that I haven't been invigorated about, and is supposed to be behind me, basically what you would be seeing behind me when I get around to it is the crafts desk, where I will set up all my painting supplies to paint all my miniatures. I have no idea how I'm going to stream that yet. I'm essentially going to need an entire other streaming setup on the desk, on that desk. And then I'll have no way of watching the chat because that'll all be happening behind me on these screens that are in front of me now. Either that, or I can get a tablet and maybe just stream just the chat to the tablet and be able to at least see what people are talking about, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to need more cameras and things, basically. So that's going to be extremely hard to set up, but I haven't been moved to paint in a long time. I have so many unpainted models. I haven't even moved most of my models from my old house. They're all just sitting there. I need to put together, well, a lot of them are now, I've lost the will to paint because they're useless. Some of them look cool, but they actually serve no purpose. So a lot of them were Games Workshop Space Marines, and with the changes to the Space Marines now, 99.9% of those models are no longer the correct scale. So yeah, so those Space Marines are all just a big old waste of time. That's like 3,000-4,000 points by the old system. No, I was over 5,000 points by the old system. And there are a lot of other things that still work. Like I've got 2 Storm Ravens and I've got drop pods and all of those things. And to the best of my knowledge, those models haven't changed yet. But I just, the over 100 infantry that I've painted at least 2/3 of, the most I've ever gotten through any army, the furthest I've gotten through any army I've ever tried, with the exception of a Necromunda gang. And yeah, that just broke me. I haven't had the will to paint in a long time. I have my D&D miniature undercoated, and he's just been sitting there, and I haven't had the will to paint him. I've got 2 Necro gangs. One of them's almost finished painted. I've painted like, there's 19 models total in the gang to give me some variation, and I've painted like 14 of them, which is pretty good. Yeah, I need to find the will to paint. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know how I'm going to motivate myself to do any more painting, but I do need to motivate myself to do more painting. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it. Not much else really needs to be said or done, except perhaps haha! It is pretty cool that we get to do this. Wonderful thing about a good graphics tablet. I mean, these days, actually, the difference between a really good graphics tablet and a really sort of ordinary graphics tablet, like just an S Pen on a Android tablet, is getting narrower and narrower. But my ability to use angle, I can't really demonstrate it. Do I even have a brush that takes into account angles? Haha. Yeah, so just by turning the pen sideways, I get that. And if I point the pen directly at the screen, I get that. Yeah, so that is, and I can do it during the course of a stroke, which of course I wouldn't be able to do. It's actually kind of hard to do, but yeah, you can't really do that with most of the pens that come with iPads and similar, but that's something that I get to do with this. Yeah. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. What was I going to do? I was going to do something. Oh, yes. That's not how you do that. Oh my god, it's been so long since I've done cursive. Jesus, I've lost track of which one's the frickin' eye. Yeah, so again, I can do this sort of stuff on a tablet very nicely. That I would not otherwise be able to do with a mouse. But instead I can very quickly knock up something silly like that. But yeah, like I said, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe you learnt something, especially about chibis and you know, similar. Keep watching the channel. I don't know whether I'm doing anything more today. I might not. But if you do like this content, hit that like button. If you're over on YouTube, definitely hit that subscribe button. Makes it nice and easy to find everything all in one place. Definitely hit the notification bell because it's super random when I go live. If you're over on Twitch, the follow button's the one that helps me out the most over there, and you can change your notification settings in your channel subscription settings. I believe it shows up under subscriptions for all the channels that you follow. Anyway, somewhere in your settings you can change your notification settings to get a notification when I go live. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.